These samplers measure organic chemicals dissolved in the water and in the pore water in sediments. By knowing what's in the water, we can better understand the potential for human and ecological health effects. For example, many chemicals can accumulate in fish or shellfish that live in contaminated waters. When humans eat the fish, they ingest these chemicals. Fish can accumulate chemicals in two ways. As fish push water through their mouth and over their gills, the chemicals in the water can get into the fish. Also, fish can eat foods contaminated with organic chemicals. Many bioavailable chemicals can then build up in fish and humans. This process is called bioaccumulation. Humans and animals depend on water as both a drinking source and a food source. By monitoring water quality, we can determine the amount of chemicals in the water, as well as figure out how much of the chemicals may be in the animals that live in the water. Pore water is the water that's in sediments. Imagine taking a shovel full of sediment from the river bottom. Squeeze the sediment. The water that comes out is the pore water. Pore water represents the most direct environment for many shellfish and burrowing organisms that are either eaten directly or consumed by other organisms, like the fish that may eat worms in the sediment. Pore water also represents the water that's associated with the soil at the bottom of bodies of water, like lakes, rivers, or oceans, the sediment. First, pick a location where you have permission to place a sampler. Choose a site that's appropriate for the question you're asking. If you're using a water sampler, make sure the water is deep enough that at low tide, the sampler won't be exposed to air. When you're identifying locations, keep your own safety in mind. Place the sampler in an easily accessible location. Again, make sure you have permission to place the sampler there. The water sampler has several pieces. This is the outside of the cage, with a hook to attach a metal cable for attaching it to a dock or other structure. The top lifts off, revealing the pieces inside that hold the sampling material. Inside the cage are 5 discs with small posts. These discs hold the sampling material. Take out all of the discs and arrange them on the ground. Put on gloves and remove the passive sampling material from the storage bag, 1 piece at a time. The gloves protect the sampling material from the oils in our skin, which can make the chemical analysis a little more difficult. Wind the sampling material around the posts of each disc. Stack all the discs back into the cage. Reattach the top of the cage and lock it in place. The sediment sampler has 3 main pieces: the outside seal piece, a screw-on lid, and an insert. The lid has a hook to let you place a metal cable for anchoring the sampler to a secure structure. Remove the insert and wind a piece of sampling material around the insert tube. Slide the wrapped tube back into the sediment probe. Using the small screws, reattach the head of the sediment sampler. Now you can take off your gloves. If you're using more than one sampler, you will need to change your gloves in between. You need to be aware of several different factors when placing a sampler, but ultimately, keep the purpose of your study in mind. Both water and sediment samplers should have an anchor, such as a cement block, tree, or a dock, to prevent them from sinking or washing away. When placing water samplers, keep them away from known boat traffic. Do not place water samplers in shipping channels, and if you can, attach a buoy to the cage to warn water traffic. For sediment samplers, you should only deploy during low tide, so your sampler is always covered by the water. When you're deploying your samplers, be aware of when low tide occurs. If you deploy during low tide, you may have to wait for the next one to retrieve your samplers. When sampling, we suggest going with a partner. This partner can also keep an eye on the water and warn you of additional dangers, such as rogue waves. When you're anchoring sediment samplers to an onshore structure, be aware that beachgoers may pull on or trip over the connecting cables. Different studies will place the samplers for different periods of time. At the end of the study, you need to return the sampler. For the water cage, remove from the water and let the excess water drain out. Wearing gloves, remove all the discs. The sampling material might be dirty, so remove each strip and rinse off the dirt in water from the site. Place the strips in the provided container and seal it tightly. For the sediment sampler, follow the same steps as the water sampler, rinsing the strips before placing them in the provided storage container. For every sample, fill out the label and associated paperwork. This paperwork will be returned along with the sampler and sampling material.